Thank you, and thanks to all of you for joining us. My name is Mikko. I've been hunting hackers all my life, but I guess in the future I'll be hunting drones. I'll speak a little bit more about that as well. But let me start by telling how I got a phone call on Thursday. Late in the evening, 9:30, my phone rings. Last week my phone was ringing a lot. I announced a big career move on Tuesday, and I've been getting a lot of messages and calls from old friends and different parties and all that. But when the phone rang on Thursday, late in the evening, it was this old lady, somewhere in her mid-80s. And she was almost in tears. His husband, another 80-year-old, had just been scammed, and they had lost €9.90 to a scammer after the husband had clicked on a SMS scam and a billing scam had been added to his phone account. €9.90. Not a big deal. But she was in tears. She told me it feels like somebody would have burglared their home. Because that's what it feels like when you get hit by crime. And it doesn't matter whether it's online crime or real world crime. It's still crime. You feel violated. You feel someone enter your premises, if you will. Well, hopefully I was able to help her a little bit, make them both feel a little bit better about the case by explaining that these happen all the time. You're not alone. People fall for this left and right. It's not your fault. These are criminals. Criminals are the one at fault. But it's also a great example on how crime has changed. I still remember the time when we used to have bank robberies in Finland. People walking into banks, like physical banks, stealing cash. Yes, we used to have physical banks. Yes, we used to have physical cash. None of them are a big thing anymore because the world has changed. And nothing changes the world as much and as quickly as technology revolutions. Technology revolutions change the world, and they change the world for the better and for the worse. No matter how much we'd love to get just the benefits out of these technology revolutions, we will get the problems. So one of the things that technology revolutions have changed during our time is that banking went from a real world thing into a virtual thing. We used to pay the bills by actually going into a bank, or a little bit later by putting the physical bills into a letter and mailing them out. But of course, nobody does that anymore. You can't even do that anymore. You have to do it virtually. And these revolutions, which has changed the way we do business, the way we handle information, changed the way the criminals work. The last time we had a bank robbery in Finland was 16 years ago. There hasn't been a single one in 16 years. We only see bank robberies in movies. But then again, we see bank robberies online all the time. So criminals have done the same thing we all have done because of these technology revolutions. We've digitized our workflow. Well, criminals have done that as well. And when a technology revolution is good enough, useful enough, we become dependent on it. We can't do our work without it. Then we are depending on that technology being there. And if it isn't, well, at worst case, our society stops. And if society stopping sounds dramatic, well, just think about the technology revolution of electricity. We're completely dependent on electricity, which was only really has only really been changing our society for 150 years, which isn't really that long of a time. Connectivity is now almost as important as electricity. Connectivity cutting, well, it doesn't completely stop our society, but it's very expensive and very painful. Eventually, it's going to be exactly as necessary as electricity. So when something is good enough, useful enough, it becomes mandatory. Cloud services are becoming mandatory. Systems don't work without cloud anymore. Imagine how much more necessary they will be in 20 years. And like I said, every single one of these revolutions bring us benefits and they bring us problems. The revolution of mobility. Great innovation. Big part of this innovation done right here in Espoo. Completely changed the world. It's almost uncanny how hard it is to explain to teenagers today how 20 years ago Nokia really was the iPhone at its time. Just like everybody everywhere around the world are today carrying iPhones or maybe Androids. Well, that was exactly what Nokia had 20 years ago, which sounds almost crazy. Like, really? Yes, really. Everybody everywhere were carrying devices made in Finland. And this revolution obviously brings great benefits. It's quite handy to have the world at your fingertips. You have a smartphone with 5G or LTE connection, complete with a generative AI agent, GPT or Claude, and you effectively have the Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy right here. Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy is from the science fiction book titled Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy, describing a device everybody carries which has all of human knowledge, knows everything. Well, that's what we've built right here. And everybody has one. Another great way of looking at this technology revolution is just looking at the power. The flops, floating point operations per second. How powerful is this? Well, the iPhone or the Android device you have in your pocket would have been the fastest supercomputer on the planet around 22, 23 years ago. So 2002, 2003, somewhere there. The most powerful supercomputer on the planet would have been slower than the phone in your pocket. And I don't know if you've seen a supercomputer. The last time I saw a supercomputer was when I was visiting Kajaani. They have the Lumi supercomputer, which right now I think is the 9th fastest computer in the world. And it was the size of 2 trucks. Ran on its own power generator, produced enough excess heat to heat the city of Kajaani. That's a supercomputer. And in 20 years, that truck-sized device gets squeezed into something that fits into your pocket, and everybody has one. And it doesn't require a power generator, it runs on a goddamn battery. And it doesn't cost you 200 million, it costs you a couple of €100. Quite amazing. So what's the downside of the technology revolution of mobility? Well, of course, it's the fact how we are becoming slaves to these devices. It's hard to focus on anything when you have these short videos in your pocket at all the time. We keep doom scrolling until 3 a.m., even though we know we shouldn't. Every one of these revolutions brings us benefits and they bring us problems. And the generative AI revolution is the biggest of them all. Bigger than the internet. And that's saying something, isn't it? Now, of course, every new technology revolution builds on top of the older revolutions. Clearly we needed the internet revolution for generative AI to become a thing, because the internet revolution converted all of mankind's knowledge to bits. Physical books used to be a thing. Physical magazines and newspapers used to be a thing. Today, obviously all of new content is natively data. And we've gone back to history and digitized all the old information as well. And generative AI is such a game changer in many ways, but one of the things that really matters is how it crosses language barriers. And I'm not talking about translation things or things like that, or the fact that you can use large language models to translate stuff. No. What I mean is that we teach these systems with data. Image generators we teach with images. Large language models we teach with text. If you're building an expert system, let's say on a medical area, to help doctors do their work, you build a large language model which reads through all medical content ever published by mankind. Maybe take a little bit of grain of salt with the medical books from, let's say, the 1600s, but you might as well have them read through that as well. And the thing that I talk about here about language barriers is that these large language models won't just read the content in English. They will read the content in all languages. Any research done anywhere in the world, in Japan, in China, in India, in France, in Germany, including the research published yesterday. Even the best doctor in the planet, a human doctor, can't read everything. They definitely can't read everything published yesterday. And they definitely can't read everything published in all languages. But large language models can. And there's a lot of talk about how AI is going to take away our jobs, make us all unemployed. Well, there will be a shift. Of course there will be a shift. I guess the best illustrator on how big the shift might be is the simple fact that OpenAI, the company behind GPT, they've been the single largest private research entity doing research into universal basic income for the last 5 years. Think about that. OpenAI is researching universal basic income. Why does a private company research universal basic income to begin with? That's like, shouldn't governments be researching that? But no, this is OpenAI, and they've put millions into this, which sounds a bit weird until you realize that they seriously, very seriously see a world where AI won't make us unemployed. AI will change the world so that we don't need to work. AI will create not all of the wealth, but most of the wealth, which will then just pay all of us universal basic income, and we can do what the hell we want. So technically we wouldn't be unemployed, we would be fun-employed. And what this means from my personal point of view is that if I need an expert, a lawyer, a doctor, I don't want an AI. I want a human. I want the human touch. I want the empathy. I want to talk with someone. I want to spar with a real human. However, the human that I choose to work with, whether it's the doctor or the lawyer, I want that person to use AI to do his work. I want the doctor who will talk to me, who will touch me, who will hug me if needed. But when he takes my blood samples or my x-rays, he's going to consult an expert system which has read all the medical books in all languages, including the research from yesterday. That's the kind of human-machine symbiosis I want from the experts that I want to use. So the general AI revolution that we are witnessing right now, I believe, is the biggest technology revolution we've seen. It might not be the last. I think it's going to enable completely new kinds of technology revolutions in the future, including revolutions we probably can't even imagine yet. But yes, it is once again bringing us great benefits and great problems. And no matter how much we'd like to get just the benefits, we will get the problems as well. There's a lot of cybersecurity experts who are worried about security implications of generative AI. However, for once, defenders are ahead of attackers. If you look at how much security companies have been using traditional machine learning, like basic AI, and now generative AI, the cybersecurity industry has been leading this field for quite a while. And when we look at what the attackers are doing today, they aren't even close. Yes, it's changing. Yes, it's going to get worse. But at this very moment, defenders are using AI much, much more than attackers. Yes, we see the occasional deepfake attacks. Yes, we see malware generated with these coding systems. We've seen the first ransomware campaigns automated and orchestrated with automation built on top of generative AI. But it's in its very beginning. And maybe the biggest advantage AI systems build for or bring for defenders is the fact that AI shines when it needs to detect odd things, unusual things, weird things, when you need AI to enable better visibility into large data sets and large systems. And that's how a big part of cybersecurity is built today. Don't look for evil things, look for weird things. Because if you're looking for evil things, you need to know what evil looks like, and you can't possibly know all possible kinds of evil. But you can look for weird things. Why is this Salesforce entity connected to this data connector, which no one else in this organization has ever used before? And how come it was this financial clerk who never connects to data connectors? She's never done this before. This is weird. Should we check that out? That's not evil. There's not a known bad entity in there. But it's weird. It's unusual. And of course, this is much more unscientific. You will get false alarms. Yes, it really was a sales clerk connecting to a new connector for the first time. Really was. Wasn't an attack. But wouldn't you like to know? And you cannot secure what you cannot see. That's why Valo is called Valo. It brings visibility into the Salesforce ecosystem. And I guess the biggest lesson I've learned in cybersecurity over the last 34 years is that complexity is the enemy of security. Complexity is the enemy of security. The more complex your systems are, the harder they are to secure. The more layers of systems and code and protocols you have, the easier it is to have mistakes in there. And when you look at the typical Salesforce setup of a company, especially if it's been running for a couple of years, maybe 10 years, it gets goddamn complex. And that's why visibility is the key. Visibility to simplify how the system really works and to see the weird things, the odd things, the unexpected things. And this is also the reason why I'm happy to be an advisor and an angel investor in Valo. When I was doing my military service in the end of 1980s, I realized just how complex our position is in the world, looking at the map. Both my grandfathers fought the Russians in the Second World War. Both my parents' families had to move away from Karelia after the Second World War. And throughout these years, I've always had a great interest in the security and defense of Finland. And for the last couple of years, as we've had war raging dead center of Europe, I've been wondering if there's more I could do regarding the war in Europe and to support Ukraine. And I've always thought that there's a lot of meaning in my work that I've been doing for decades in cybersecurity. And of course, there is. It's very important work. But as I announced last week, I'm in August leaving my position at WithSecure, where I've been working for 34 years, joining originally a company called Data Fellows in 1991, then renamed to F-Secure, then to WithSecure. And I will be joining a company called SensoFusion on August 13th to build anti-drone solutions. So going from software to hardware, from antivirus to anti-drone. Because right now I feel that it's even more important. And there's even more meaning in building those kind of systems. And there's a lot of similarities. I've spent my life fighting programmable threats. We're trying to detect something that doesn't want to get detected, that's trying to avoid detection. And we are trying to detect it. Malware, viruses, worms, trojans. And when we detect them, then the creators behind those attacks, those programmable threats, will modify them, change it, try to avoid detection again, and then we need to update our detection. A game of cat and mouse that I've been playing for 34 years. And that's exactly what's happening in drone detection right now. Aerial drones, marine drones, ground drones that you want to detect and stop. Maybe for civilian use, but today, even more importantly, for military use. They don't want to get detected. We need to be able to detect and disable them. And when we are able to do that, they will change. And then we will update our detections. Escalation. Cat and mouse. I've been fighting programmable threats all my life, and I will continue to fight programmable threats in the future. But even though my day job changes, my dedication and my position as an advisor here at Valo, of course, will continue. Very happy to be part of the Valo story. Thank you very much.